Hello, and welcome to our Financial Aid Friday Instagram Live. My name is Noelia Gonzalez, and I am the CSU Systemwide Director of Financial Aid Programs. Today, we'll be answering some of the most common questions around funding a CSU degree and navigating the financial aid application process. This has been a year like no other. We knew there would be some delay, but it is now far beyond what was anticipated, considering that FAFSA data will only begin to be released in mid-March to university financial aid offices. There are additional complexities with regard to changing calculations. What was formerly the Expected Family Contribution, or EFC, has now become a Student Aid Index, or SAI. There are also some unique impacts for California, more so than for many other states. For example, students from a mixed immigration household in which the student is a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, but one or more of their parents is undocumented, are not currently able to submit the FAFSA. So they may be rightfully eligible for a federal Pell Grant, but the application is creating a barrier. We understand the frustration that students and families are feeling. We are frustrated too. Please bear with us while we navigate through this difficult process. Financial aid offices on all 23 campuses are open and ready to help students navigate the application process, but we are all hindered by the delay in the delivering of the student aid reports to the financial aid offices by the Federal Department of Education. Financial aid offices are working diligently to prepare for the receipt of the information so they can award students as soon as possible after the receipt of the student aid reports.
Thank you for that update, Noelia. And again, thank you for joining us on this Instagram Live. And thank you to all our viewers. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section down below, and then we'll get to them after we go through some general financial aid questions. So let's start out with number one. Who should apply for financial aid?
All students that are here in the state of California should apply for financial aid. Students that are U.S. citizens or permanent residents should file the free application for federal student aid, or FAFSA, and with that application, we will determine your eligibility for federal aid, state financial aid, and university funding. Students that are here in the state of California and are undocumented and have AB 540 status are eligible to apply using the California DREAM Act application, and they are eligible for state financial aid and institutional funds.
Great, thank you. And what types of financial aid options are there?
Federal aid has federal Pell Grants, the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, federal student loans, and federal work study. So there is plenty of funding there for students. The state of California funding includes the Cal grants, California grants that will cover fees. There's also the Middle Class Scholarship, which is a cost of attendance grant that students are eligible to apply for. Students that are teaching credential students are eligible for the Golden State Teach Grant. And then this universities, the CSUs, we have our State University Grant Program. We have the Our Educational Opportunity Program grant. So there are a lot of grants out there. Students should also apply for scholarships. Each of the 23 universities has a scholarship website where you can go visit, submit your scholarship applications. And you can also do searches for private outside of the university scholarships as well.
Perfect, thank you. And next, how can I get the most financial aid available?
Well, the most financial aid is you want to apply by the priority filing date of April 2nd. This is a one-time change for the 24-25 academic year. Usually it would have been March 2nd, but due to the delay of the FAFSA and the California DREAM Act application, this year it's April 2nd of 2024. So make sure you submit either your FAFSA or your California DREAM Act application by that date.
Perfect. And how do I apply for financial aid?
So you apply by either filing the free application for federal student aid or the California DREAM Act by that priority deadline of April 2nd. Students that submit their application after April 2nd are still eligible for funding, but it would be on a limited basis.
Got it. And which application should I complete, the FAFSA or the CADA?
So if you are a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident, definitely file the free application for federal student aid. That's FAFSA. And in our stories are links to the application for the FAFSA. If you are in the state of California and you are an undocumented student that meets the AB 540 criteria, you would fill out a CADA or California Dream Act application. And that application is hosted by the California Student Aid Commission.
Thank you. And again, when is that priority deadline?
April 2nd.
Perfect. And how many colleges will I be able to list on the FAFSA or the CADA?
This year, for the first time, you'll be able to list up to 20 colleges and universities.
And what if I made a mistake on FAFSA or CADA?
If you've made a mistake on your application, you can do one of two things. You can either work with your financial aid office to make some changes, or you can make the changes that are on the same website where you've submitted your application. So you would log back into, for example, the studentaid.gov account that will give you access to your FAFSA, and you can make changes there. However, students cannot make changes yet. You will need to wait until the Department of Education has processed your application. So we expect that sometime beginning in mid-March, students will be able to submit changes to their FAFSAs.
Got it. And where can I get help completing the FAFSA or CADA?
So there are a lot of websites that are out there that will give you help, that will answer questions. There's frequently asked questions, but you can always visit your financial aid offices on your campus, and they'll be happy to either help you or direct you to where you can get help.
Perfect. Thank you. We also received some questions leading up to today's event, so we're going to go through a few of them now. As a reminder, if you do have a question, please put it in the Q&A section below. If you see a question that's already there that you would like answered, please give it a like so we can see which one has the most need to be answered. So our first question that we received prior to this was, can financial aid only go towards school expenses, or can it also be used for personal expenses?
So we award financial aid for a student's expenses that are associated with being a student at that university. So your financial aid will cover your tuition and fees, your housing. It can cover books, transportation, food, other miscellaneous expenses. So we take all that, we come up with what's called a cost of attendance. So it's not just for your tuition and fees, it can cover all your other costs associated with being a student.
Got it. And is financial aid available to international students?
Federal and state financial aid is not available to international students, and neither are most CSU funds. International students can always apply for scholarships.
Got it. And can I make a FAFSA account for my parent without a social security number? Or where can they go to get help retrieving their FSA ID?
So there will be websites in our stories where you can go seek help for the studentaid.gov accounts. A student cannot create the account for the parent. The parent will have to create their own account. If your parent does not have an SSN, a social security number, you should go to the studentaid.gov website, and that will give them instructions on how to get an account created.
Got it. And then for incoming freshmen, when will we expect our financial aid packet?
Well, typically, financial aid awards would have gone out sometime in March. But since we do not and will not have any of the what we call institutional student aid reports, that is a report that the federal government produces, the Department of Education, once you have filed your FAFSA, and sends that to the universities. That report will let us know what type of financial aid and how much you're eligible for. We will not be receiving those until middle of March, and it's beginning of we're not going to start getting them until the middle of March, and we're going to be receiving them on a rolling basis. So financial aid awards, we're hoping to have out sometime in the middle of April. However, that really depends on the Department of Education, when they release the reports to us, and if we're getting them all at once, or if we're going to be receiving them on a rolling basis.
Got it. And then how does the financial aid appeal process work?
If you have a question about the financial aid award that you're receiving, if there has been a change to your income, if there's a change to your dependency status, please contact your financial aid office and they will work with you on updating your situation and your application to better reflect what's going on in your life today.
Got it. Thank you for covering those. Now let's go over some of the audience questions that we've been receiving in the Q&A section. Our first one is, how do you fill out the FAFSA form if your parents are undocumented?
So this year for the 24-25 academic year, everybody who is contributing information to the FAFSA will need to have an account at the studentaid.gov, studentaid.gov account. Parents who are undocumented will need to go into that website and they will answer a series of questions where their identity will be confirmed, and then they'll be issued an account number once their identity is verified. At this time, it's not always working, and the Department of Education is working at updating that information and making sure that that process works for students and for their parents. Again, we'll have some links to websites up there with the Department of Education that will give you more information on how to go through this process.
Perfect. Thank you. And then how long does financial aid take to process from the day it was submitted?
Well, for this year, it's taking a few months from the Department of Education to send us the information. So students were able to start filing their FAFSAs on December 31st of 2023, and the Department of Education will begin releasing those reports to the universities in the middle of March. Once we receive the information from the Department of Education, we'll review it, determine if we need to collect any additional information from students, and we'll notify those students via email. The portal accounts on your universities will also be updated with any needed items. Once your file is complete, we should be able to get an award out to you within a couple of weeks at the latest. But again, we are waiting for the information from the Federal Department of Education, and until we receive that, we will not be able to award any students financial aid.
Got it. Thank you for that update. And then on the FAFSA, is there a question to specify if you're living on campus or not?
This year, that question does not exist on the free application for federal student aid. So students will either answer a question directly with their university, possibly it was answered when you applied for admissions, or you can update your financial aid office, letting them know directly that you plan what your housing plans are. If you plan to live on campus, off campus, or at home with your family.
Got it. And then I have another question here. What if my parents are living out of the country? FAFSA doesn't accept an address besides the one in the US.
Again, all people or all parents and students that are contributing information will need to submit information to that FAFSA. They have developed a process for those parents that are not are living in the United States. If you visit one of the links that we'll be providing in our story, you'll be able to link directly with the Department of Education.
Thank you. And then what if I want to apply for aid for graduate school, but when I originally applied, it pertained to my undergraduate degree? Would I edit my application to apply for graduate school or start a new one?
You would edit your application. There is a question on the FAFSA that asks you what your educational plans are for the 24-25 year. And then you would just change that from undergraduate to graduate, and then that'll take care of that issue.
Got it. And then will there be an extension for the FAFSA deadline or from the university's financial aid office?
So for the state of California, we've already extended it. The state, through the legislative process last year, extended it from March 2nd to April 2nd. We don't anticipate that the state will extend it past that, but we don't know. The state can always decide to extend it until May, but it's a very fluid situation where we're trying to wait to see how fast or how quickly the Department of Education processes the applications and gets them to campuses. But as of right now, it's already been extended by 1 month. University aid offices, we've also extended at the CSU the priority deadline from March 2nd to April 2nd. Again, it's a very fluid situation. If the Department of Ed can deliver FAFSA information by the middle of March, I anticipate that there would be no change to that April 2nd priority filing date. Again, it's a priority filing date, so you can still apply after April 2nd of 2024. If the Department of Education does not submit or does not issue or release FAFSA information to us until a later date, that date, we may change that date internally. But again, it's very fluid. Please keep in touch with your universities, your financial aid offices, and our websites, and we'll keep students and their families updated with any news that is coming through.
Got it. Thank you. And what if parents refuse to fill out their portion of FAFSA? Can a student file a FAFSA without a parent?
The student can file a FAFSA without their parents' information. There is a question on there that will ask you that if your parents are unwilling to submit information. If the student has had a break in a relationship with their families, with their parents, and that's why they're not filling it out. So for example, there's no contact, their parents have basically abandoned the student, they can request what's called a provisional independent status on the FAFSA. And then when we receive the information from the Department of Education, the financial aid office will reach out to you with further instructions on what kind of paperwork you'll need to complete with the financial aid office.
Got it. Thank you. And I know this question many students often have. Does the time of submitting your FAFSA dictate your amount? For example, applying earlier grants you more.
For the CSU, it does not. You just want to make sure you meet that priority April 2nd deadline. So if you file by that April 2nd, we'll consider all students for the same funding. Students that apply after April 2nd will have limited funding. The Cal Grant program and the Middle Class Scholarship program also have an April 2nd filing date, and that's not a priority date. That is the date that you have to submit either a FAFSA or a CADA by in order to be eligible for Cal Grants and Middle Class Scholarship.
Got it. Thank you. And can you remind people about the processing time in March, when they should expect that?
So again, the CSU, the Department of Education will not be releasing FAFSA or student aid reports to the campuses until the middle of March. It will take us some time to receive those applications, review, and determine if students need to submit any additional information. So I would suspect that, again, it's very fluid, that the earliest that a student will have a financial aid award will be sometime in the first or second week of April. Campuses will be reaching out to students at likely the end of March, early April, if they need to submit any additional information. But again, we will not be receiving any information from the Department of Education until the middle of March.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, my student is a high school junior. Do we complete the FAFSA this year or when he's a senior?
You will not submit the FAFSA or complete the FAFSA until the students are a senior. So for the 2025 graduating class, so this class that's coming up next year, the FAFSA should open on October 1 of 2025 for the 25-26 academic year. So if you're currently a junior and you're going into your senior year in the fall of 2025, October 1 is when
the deadline will go back to March 2nd next year?
Yes. The April 2nd deadline or a priority filing date was a one-time exception. In the 2025 year, we will be going back to March 2nd. So students that are currently juniors, for example, who will be a senior next year, they can begin filing their FAFSA or CADA on October 1 with the priority filing date of March 2nd, 2025.
Got it. And If both parents have a new partner, does the student have to include everyone's information?
So if you're a dependent student and your parents are no longer married or are not married, you will use the parent's information that provided 50% of support to you in the most recent 12 months. So whichever parent provided 50% or more of financial support in the last or most recent 12 months, you will use their information. If that parent has remarried or has a new partner, it'll be those two people's information that are considered contributors for your application, and they'll be filling out the financial information.
What if a student put a wrong email address to send confirmation? How would they change that?
They will need to reach out to the Department of Education. I think they can log back into, they might, I don't know that they can log back into their application and make that change. But if you go to your studentaid.gov account and log in, there should be instructions there. If not, you'll need to contact the Department of Education.
Got it. And then do transfer students get financial aid awards if transferring mid-year?
So if you're planning on transferring in the spring, for example, the spring of 2025, that would be considered a mid-year transfer for the 24-25. Transfer students are eligible for financial aid. You'll just need to make sure that you file your FAFSA or your California DREAM Act application. I would suggest that you also meet that April 2nd deadline. And if you don't know yet where you're transferring to, at a later date, you can always go back into your application and add the universities that you're applying to for admissions for the spring 2025 semester.
Got it. Thank you. The next question is there a defined way to calculate parental support for custodial parent purposes?
The definition is currently if they're providing 50% or more of the support. So that is very different for different students. So if you kind of take a look at your parents, if one parent is contributing more financially, that's the parent who would need to submit their information on the FAFSA.
Got it. Thank you. And do I need to send this information to the housing office, or will that be taken into consideration when filing my FAFSA?
When you file your FAFSA and the information is received by the university financial aid office and the university's housing office will work together, and the financial aid office will let them know, for example, if you're receiving financial aid and if you have enough financial aid to cover those housing charges. So you don't need to reach out separately to talk about financial aid to the housing office. When you file your housing application, you will want to let them know that you're planning on using financial aid to cover your housing charges.
Great, thank you. I think we've gone through all the questions so far. If anyone watching has any other questions, please feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to answer them separately, either in our story, or you can always send us a message and we will get back to you on that. Noelia, thank you so much for joining us and helping us just through this time and just better understand what's happening with the whole financial aid process. Again, we encourage you to visit calstate.edu/apply/paying for college if you have any other questions about financial aid options that are available to you. And again, when is the FAFSA Arcata application priority deadline?
April 2nd of 2024. And be sure to keep your eyes on our stories so that you can go to the links that we're providing with more information.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.